How's everybody doing? You all right? Everybody fed already? All right. My name is Alejandro Villalpando, or Alex Villalpando. I'm, first and foremost, I'm the kid of a lady named Maria and a man named Alejandro. I was born and raised in this area. I went to Washington Prep. I went to John Grier Middle School. And secondly, I got some letters behind my name. I'm also Dr. Alejandro Villalpando, and I have a PhD and a couple master's degrees and all this other stuff. But I'm still a community member here because I believe in this neighborhood. I believe in my people, and I believe all that. So welcome to this neighborhood that has a long history of struggle, that has a long history of people living, and we're here for the meeting of the Town Hall, the South Central Chapter Town Hall, the United Front Against Fascism. All right. So right now, what we've seen in our society, in our communities, is constant videos of attacks and brutalization against our communities. They didn't just start right now, though. Because I grew up here, I know that these constant attacks against our communities have been long-standing. I'm a kid of the LA riots in 1992. I'm a kid who was raised to understand the Watts riots of 1965, the Detroit riots of 1966, I believe, or 67, the Harlem riots. I know about, the white terroristic violence in Memphis back in the 1800s. All these different things that I know, but what I also know is that people don't just take stuff, and there comes a moment where people have to do something about the conditions that we're facing. And that moment has been passed. And lucky for us, we have so many wonderful people in the audience and that are going to be speaking today who have taken it upon themselves to do something about this moment. People didn't just sit around and was like, what can you do, And there is still a lot of people that are like, what can you do? It's just tough. Or people that feel comfortable saying that's happening to them over there, or that's their problem, or this problem. But all that doesn't matter. It's not going to matter. And I'll end my little introduction here by saying this. There's a book that I read by this, I teach a book, it's a little novel, it's like 75 pages. It's on tourism in the small island country of Antigua. Her name is Jamaica Kincaid. The book is called The Small Place. And in it, the height of the book is a moment where she says, in a small place, little things become small, little things become big, and big things become small, right? And people argue and bicker about everyday stuff, like at the market, they get mad, like, they took my parking spot, look at how that person looked at me, this person plays their music too loud, this person parked in my parking spot, man, you're renting. But those things become big, right? And then the big things become small. They cut your Medicare in Minneapolis. They privatize these detention centers. They raise your rent. The Little Caesar hot and ready is going up. The sack of beans is going up. Those things are big and they seem small. They're not as important as whatever's happened to some celebrity or whatever sports thing. And I love sports, And so by the time, it's like a boulder, they say in the book. A boulder that's huge from far away looks real small. But by the time you see the problem, that boulder is on top of it. So right now, the purpose of this is to see that boulder a little further away, just a little bit, before it's right on top of us. And that thing is coming downhill fast. That big ass rock is coming downhill fast. And so right now we're here to come together to share some ideas, some thoughts, some experiences, hopefully share some hope and really build on some power so that we know that everyday people do stuff to stop that boulder, to crush that boulder, and eventually to make use of that boulder to serve the many as opposed to what we have today, which is serving the few. All right? So I want to pass it on to the compañero here, Juan from Los Rucos, to say a little bit more words for our program today. And thank y'all for being here. I really appreciate y'all.
First off, I'm not trying to sound like the Godfather. I got Parkinson's and it makes my voice. ¿Cuántas personas aquí no hablan inglés? quieren el equipo para traducir en español. ¿Nadie? Ok, está bien. Greetings, sisters and brothers. I'm here this beautiful Sunday afternoon to introduce you all to the sponsor of today's event, the United Front Against Fascism, a working committee of the May Day Coalition, the labor and community-based groups that organize the May Day marches in Los Angeles. After the 2025 May Day action, a debrief was held wherein participants decided because of the Trump regime and its plans to detain and forcibly remove quote-unquote undocumented persons, sustained effort was necessary for community labor, organizing, education, and base building, and therefore became the United Front Against Fascism. Well, we all know what happened in June with the brigade of ICE and the National Guard invading Los Angeles and raids occurring at workplaces, Home Depot, parking lots, residents, and outside of immigration courtrooms. At the same time, protests, both spontaneous and planned, started taking place with immediate national and media coverage. Many peaceful protesters were treated roughly, beaten, and arrested, all too often by local law enforcement. The United Front Against Fascism began holding a series of Townhall meetings. 4 meetings have been held so far in Huntington Park for the southeast LA cities, in Wilmington for the South LA cities, in Boyle Heights for the East LA region, and here today in South Central. I want you to know that the biggest part of the agenda today is listening to you, getting your input, your ideas, your concerns. Please know that the United Front Against Fascism wants to hear you. That's why an hour of today's meeting is planned for your questions and comments. Every one of us needs to fully realize that we cannot depend on anybody but ourselves. The Supreme Court decision granting the Trump regime full stop and frisk, detain, deport powers shouldn't burden anyone of the illusion. And lawsuits will remedy our situation. The only remedy is unity among workers and community members organizing on a day-to-day basis. Benito Juarez, the first and only full-blooded indigenous president of Mexico, declared that peace is respect of the rights of others. The reality is that MAGA America has no respect for us and other peoples of color. The working class, women and LGBTQ+, senior citizens, union members, young people, free-thinking members of the press, anyone who stands up against repression. Help build the United Front Against Fascism. Solo Pueblo, Solo Pueblo. Gracias. Thank you.
All right. So. As the compañero said, right, like we're here for you all, you know, like this is us just sharing some thoughts of what we're doing, but this is about all of us coming together and hopefully sharing some, even reflection, you know, like I think one of the things that is really important is that for all of us to put our stories out there and like our ideas out there because we need to do something, right? Like we need to build on the ideas of the masses and come together for some unified struggle. So the panel presentation will begin right now. It is my honor to present Ms. Lori Condinus. She's from the National Action Network and AFSCME District Local 36 Business Representative. And she's been a long struggler alongside our people and part of our communities, and I've known her for nearing a decade now, you know, being out in these streets and struggling. So thank you so much, Ms. Lori.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Cliff, for inviting me here today. There you go. Thank you, Cliff, for inviting me here today. I first want to recognize in the crowd my president, who I say is president, First Lady, Madam President Veronica Gunn from AFSCME District Council 36. And we also want to recognize our Assembly District candidate for the District of 67, Sister Ada Briseño is here today as well. So, sisters and brothers and siblings, where are we today? We're in a mess. We're in a mess, we're in a crisis. We are at a point almost of no return. How did we get here? It was not the price of eggs, so stop saying that. It wasn't affordability. It was two things, in my opinion: racism and greed. That's what gave us Donald Trump .2. We have watched this country go back. We have lost rights that so many of our forefathers fought, bled, and died for. And what do? Trump has made a direct attack on people of color. Black women, through the firings of all the folks in the federal government, through trying to gut labor and unions. And it's only the people of color. He's terrorizing our immigrant communities of color. There's other immigrants in this nation, ladies and gentlemen, that are not of color, and I don't see those neighborhoods being terrorized. We are seeing people snatched out of cars, disappeared off the street, and ultimately killed. Brother right here in Los Angeles, New Year's Eve, Keith Porter, killed by an off-duty ICE officer. Where was the outrage, sisters and brothers? Where was the outrage? We didn't get any until the white sister and the white brother in Minneapolis were killed, and then the outrage began. Our history, your history, my history, is being erased. Or as I like to say, whitewashed. And now, 2 days ago I wake up and now we're at war with Iran. Why are we at war with Iran? Why are we at war with the people that hasn't done anything to us? You might not agree with their politics, and I bet you they don't agree with ours. But they're not bombing us. Why are we bombing them? Why are we saving the world when we have people right here in need of food, health care, housing, but we're off in a foreign country somewhere? So what do we do? What do we do, ladies and gentlemen? Well, coming from a labor perspective, we've been told, don't agonize, organize. Don't give up. In honor of Reverend Jesse Jackson, we are going to keep hope alive. How do we do that? Labor will play a critical role, as they always have, looking back in history. Labor has always been on the front lines and in the forefront of any movement. Because if labor is not there to help uplift that struggle, it's not going to succeed. Some ideas, I don't know, we have to get radical. We can't do the same thing. We can't operate in the same way. Perhaps California, don't send your federal money to DC. The federal money in this state takes care of a vast part of this nation. What happens if we keep it here? Imagine what we could do if we kept that money at home. General strike, which we know our labor president, Yvonne is working on. We have to shut excuse me, Elder, we have to shut shit down, y'all. Because that's what people understand. We have to hit them where it counts, in their pocket. And we have to get more radical in our fight. We can't do the same. Marching's great. Listen, first one out there, me. Yeah. First one out there. But we have to do more. We have to be a little more radical in how we push this struggle forward and how we put handcuffs on this man in Washington, living in a half-tore-down house that black people built, might I remind you. So, sisters and brothers, I'm not here to give you a message of doom. I am here to give you a message of hope, and hopefully to inspire you to figure out where you fit in the movement. Everybody isn't a marcher. Some people fry good chicken. Because, listen, we have to eat in the struggle, right? Find your niche and fit into that niche. Bring people out. I have a question, Elder, First Lady. Where are our churches? Where are our pastors? And I ask this as a child of God who is favored by the Most High. Where are our preachers today? They should be on the front lines with us. They should be in front of us, quite frankly, helping to lead this struggle. But it's okay, sisters and brothers, because we are going to keep this fight going, however it looks, but it's going to have to look different. I want each and every one of you to stay engaged, find a way to be engaged, find a way to put yourself in this struggle to help push back on this fascist administration. Thank you.
I'm gonna switch the order a little bit so Patricia can settle a little bit. Hola, Patricia. I see you. So I'm gonna go ahead. Thank you so much, Sister Lori. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic over to Sister Yvonne Ortiz from the Democratic Socialist of America, Los Angeles, and also part of the Home Depot Community Patrol. So a lot of y'all have heard about these Home Depot Community Patrols, and then the Community Defense Coalition, right, or the Community Self-Defense Coalition. Here we have a member of our local Home Depot patrol, and also I see some other members up in here too, and I think that that's really powerful. Yeah, so I'm gonna pass it over to Sister Yvonne here.
I'm representing DSA-LA today, but I'm also a member of CSCC, and the first thing I want to say is that DSA-LA has really improved a lot by the help of so many of the other people that are here, Action Network and Barrio. It's not us alone. I also come as a representative of them with no leadership there. I am the most everyday person as part of that group. And that's what I really want to talk about today, is how all of us are capable of having a part of everything about finding your niche is so relevant and so important. A lot of people have really discovered how they can use skills that they think are not important here to do things that are amazing. We had a bunch of moms who were thinking about how the notes we were putting in sweaters to get detainees were being taken by DHS, and they were like, well, we sew, and we have iron-on patches. We're going to create one that we can put onto these sweaters to go in. No one thought sewing was going to be part, or maybe people knew sewing was going to be part of the revolution, but maybe not it's just everybody has something that they can bring, and literally just showing up is everything, That's all I got. I show up. So far with DSA-LA, we've, with Barrio and specifically, have started kind of centers at the Home Depots. We are primarily in this area, the one on Slauson and Western here, and we showed up and we made better than connections with people in the community and asked them what they needed and what they wanted. And since then, we've grown to have lots of Know Your Rights campaigns walking around showing, you've probably all seen red cards, right, with the rights on it. Now we have cards that have the numbers you can call, the legal help in case you're somebody you know is detained. We've also been giving out whistles and trying to encourage people to learn the different codes so that we can more easily have recognition. Even if you haven't met somebody, if somebody shows up and does the signal, you know what it means. And it's hard because you have to be able to trust them too, but that's what we've been doing, harm reduction. We've been identifying families, helping them make contact, helping them get support, just sharing information, being part of coalitions with other parts of the community. And a lot of our folks that show up are not part of DSA-LA. You do not have to be part of DSA-LA to be a part of what is happening. You don't have to be an immigrant or a migrant or undocumented or Honolulu or anything else. Like anybody and everybody that needs something to show up, and we'll do what we can, you know. We are partnering with some 501c3s to bring groceries more easily so that you don't have to go to a food pantry. The food pantry comes to you. That's how it should be. So that kind of stuff in production. But we want more, we want the next step, and that's what I'm here to talk about is what it looks like in the future. And not my idea, but the thing I'm going to talk about is how everyday people, even just by knowing what's going on, having the numbers and the list and the information, and talking to the people that they love, and then talking to the people that they, and so on, leads to effective change. The boulder's coming, every little pebble in its way, every blade of grass even, is slowing it down, or is going to stop it, or send it off course, or whatever it is. So every little thing, and people have to make their own assessments on what their risks are, what they're capable, all of that stuff, but when it comes down to any person who is doing even the smallest, quietest thing is really big and mighty and powerful. So I just want everybody to feel that spirit regardless of what you're showing up for. Do what you can, and also talk about, the other thing is talking about disruption. Also the general strike, hell yeah. On the way, I want to identify areas of disruption. So if we could have fewer people strike and we can support them financially, with food and everything, but it actually does more disruption to these invaders, then, along the way we can do that too. And I hope that there are folks here who have some ideas about that debate.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. I appreciate those words. I think everybody appreciates those words. That just, what I took from that was, I'm just an everyday person. And that's enough, So the next person on our panel to share some wisdom and some words and some insights is a tremendous leader in our city, in our labor movement. It is dear sister Patricia Recinos from the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, and she's the director of organizing. So please give a warm welcome to Sister Patricia Recinos.
I don't know about a leader, but I am a mother, I am a daughter, and I am a first immigrant. Así que no puedo decir que soy el liderazgo de nadie, solo de mi casa, y a eso tal vez. My name is Patricia, and I thank you for the introduction. I am a union organizer. I am a daughter of immigrants. I want to go back a second in timeline. I was a national trainer for the AFL-CIO, and in 2015 we were in New Orleans. And we started to hear all of this, make America great again, make America great again. And that red hat, I'm not going to hold it against it, but it says angels, right? It's a red hat. Everybody with the red hat. I can verlo, that's a trigger. I say dog whistle. And it's a term that's used in the South when somebody's trying to tell you something in between the lines. Leerlo entre las líneas. And it was that dog whistle of make America great again. What did it mean? I'm not from the South. I didn't know what it meant. I'd be asking people, what did it mean? What did it mean? But when you get treated at a training that union people that pay $250 to sit at the table and you feel the total disrespect, it was clear something was happening. Something was happening. Because people don't come to treat the main trainers in a room with such disrespect. What kind of disrespect? I voltearme de un lado so that I'm not looking at you, or to tell you I don't talk to women. What? Un hombre me va a decir that he doesn't talk to women? Something was effing wrong. Algo me decía, something's up. What is this dog whistle? What is this dog whistle? Make America great again. I'm not so into history to know that back in the 60s, it was to keep black people down. And it wasn't just black people, but they wanted to keep unions down, los sindicatos. And then here we come into the 80s and the 90s, and now it was immigrant. What was it called back in the day? The white devil. The white devil had two heads. And then I'm sitting in a training and I'm thinking, that's already now, so bear with me, that now este demonio has three heads. They hate black people, they hate union people, and ahora they hate immigrants. But we can't be, again, I'm not so knowledgeable about history, but look at what history has taught us. When we look at it, and I've been talking about, Brother Cliff asked me, like, you've been talking about Project 2025, come share. In November, okay, now I'm fast forwarding. We are in this new election. I had this crease over my eye. I'm getting older, but I'm like, I was looking at everybody como un ojo así. Did you vote for Trump? Did you vote for Trump? I had a crease. Looking at my family, did you vote for Trump? Not my immediate, but my extended. Did you vote for Trump? My brother, my sister-in-law. I'm like checking them out. Así viéndolos con unos ojos así, tengo una así crease. And we came up with like a disbelief in November of 2024. But Project 2025, 900 pages. And I'm not going to say go out and read all 900 pages, but there's pieces in there on unions. And who did they turn around and attack? The American federal government employees. And again, they're attacking them. We see the attacks on healthcare. We see the attacks on hotel workers. It is emboldening. It is making these corporate CEOs, chief executive officers, que se sienten más poderosos to smash workers. And so we are able to see that so we see that they've attacked immigration, attacking unions. There's a piece on there in government, there's a piece on there in voting, there's a piece in, and I say in there, they're the Project 25, on veterans, on our Social Security, on pensions. Everything is spelled out on what's going to happen. We are what? March 1st of 2026. And they say, if you read some of these things, that his roadmap is unfolding. Everything that this administration has said that they're going to do, they are doing. But I think sometimes that we are just stuck on Trump. I said demonio Trump. But he has friends, he has people with deep pockets. It is those billionaires, it is the imperialists out there that are deep in there. If we topple him and push him to the side, they're still all there because they're just publicly moving him. Because those are the billionaires that have really put him up. And I was reading the Project 2025, and I said, okay, all the authors are on page 15. All the contributors are on page 25 to 31. People who are giving him money, people who have written their piece into Project 2025. Those are the people, not just him, who he has emboldened. The pillars of power in this government are the executive order, the judicial order. There's a third one, and then media. 4 powers within this administration. And who did he go after first? Media, to disangle media. Having reporters, editors, pulled off their show, not able to be able to talk truth to power. So he's dismantling these powers that exist to protect you and I, that transparency. He's now at the executive order, mangling all that up again. Congress is up because they are not standing up. We see him going after the judges, and barely people are questioning him or even dare to poke at him or vote no against him por miedo, for fear. But if they don't, it's you and I, and blessed there are children here. That is who we are defending when we stand up and stand out. Let's not be in June of 2026. Let's not be in November in 2026 and say, oh my God, what happened? Thinking, we are talking big action on May 1st. And it is hard for me as a union person to say, because I can't go to any union and say, go on strike. But I think we can say, and again, it's Patricia, this is not the Federation, is that we can say, we could use our economic power. We could use our dollar to say, don't shop on Friday, no compras el viernes, plan, get your comida Wednesday or Friday, prepara. We know how to prepare. We can have some frijoles and some tortillas, we're not afraid of that. Prepare and create that economic fight, economic muscle. We don't get muscles overnight. We build on them, we exercise on them. And so maybe, we have to start somewhere. Because we cannot be caught flat-footed come June 26th and November 26th, 2026 of these elections. Our flexing power, people need to say, And maybe, I gotta give a lot of credit to Unión de Barrio, who took the Home Depot, but there are other corporate entities for us to boycott, or for us to take a stand against. Let us all pick one knowing that we're going in the same direction to defend our democracy. And I'll stop there.
All right, thank you so much. I think I'm up. So my name is Dr. Alejandro Villalpando, and I'm gonna go, I guess I'm just standing here. I wrote some stuff down, but after hearing all of that, I think it blends with what's being said. So my thoughts in this current episode of capitalist and imperialist escalation of violence in the local and global sense is growing, are that we need to continue to be clear and committed to the building of a united front against fascism. And that is the only way to stand a chance to confront and fight and ultimately win a world that has never been together. It means struggle, sacrifice, and thinking and acting collaboratively, as the folks before me already said, and battling against things that divide us, including things like our own egos. I'm the kid of two working poor immigrant parents. My mother, an indigenous woman from Guatemala, who had to make the hard decision to leave her 4 children behind when she migrated northward to earn a living to sustain their lives because she was not able to do so in her own country. My father, one of 15 children who grew up working since he was a child on plantations in Jalisco for landowners who own medium-sized swaths of land. They're known as minifundios. He migrated as a young man with dreams of making enough money to return to his family and homelands, a dream that's common for many, especially people that live in this community. I grew up not too far from here in South Central LA. I went to public schools in LAUSD in the 1980s and throughout the 1990s. Witnessing and experiencing the war on drugs firsthand through my community. I was also privileged to witness the way people like my parents, who came to these areas of a mega city like LA, were able to make life all while navigating things and systems that were set up for the benefit of a few, the ruling class, without speaking the predominant language, English, or understanding the social, legal, and political realities that shape the place that we would live in. I learned about the resilience and resistance cultures of Black Americans and Afro-diasporic people from places like Belize, Nigeria, and Jamaica from neighbors and classmates. Life for me was complex, beautiful, connected, powerful, and dignified. Today I'm seeing those same people being faced with not just the daily struggle of living in a society, in a city where the cost of living continues to skyrocket while wages remain relatively stagnant. My people are also being put in the crosshairs of an expanding and intensifying police state that is terrorizing them. I see the same language being used to talk about my community that we use today that was used when I was a kid and during the war on drugs. That we are people who live in dangerous communities where crime runs rampant, that we are both lazy and stealing jobs, where the only solution to address the problems of our time is more and more policing, punishment, and surveillance, that our people are unique monsters and threats to society who take, and never give. So the stories go over and over. It's disorienting and dehumanizing to hear things from people like us, things like this said for people like us. Because we try to fight those things with stories about how good we are, about how hardworking we are, about how innocent we are. And I honestly believe that those stories are true and there is good reason to tell them in the face of the dehumanizing and criminalizing projects that are used to justify our oppression and the brutality committed against us. But ultimately, those stories are not enough. And they're not enough because we are not facing individuals who will be swayed by righteous and heart-wrenching stories. History shows us that what we are facing is a system based on protecting itself by any means necessary. And what system is that? The system, neighbors, compas, and comrades, is the system of capitalism. Capitalism is a system which is run by and benefits a small group of people, the ruling class, the capitalists. This isn't your tío that owns a store in the neighborhood, you know? These are people that own everything that is used to make everything, okay? Who own the modes of production, the factories, corporations, and in this moment, who take up ownership of the government, which is fascism. And who keep their power through the exploitation of the working class. The working classes are then told over and over in capitalist societies that they have freedom because they have the ability to get jobs and get paid for their work. Their work, and to a large extent their bodies, actually can be bought and sold based on what the capitalist class determines is justifiable based on how they can maximize profits and protect their power. The determinations of what we as workers must engage in is often determined by forces that are hard to understand and hard to see, especially if we don't talk to one another. And more, the ruling class has kept the working class, the working poor, hungry, isolated, and in competition with one another, creating a culture that keeps us separated and feeling powerless to truly determine what our future will look like. Today, we see the attacks of ICE and CBP in collaboration with local police departments. All the meanwhile, the U.S. empire bombs fishermen in the Caribbean seas, kidnaps presidents of countries like Maduro and Venezuela, facilitates and funds the bombing and genocide of Palestine and Palestinians, engages in illegal wars in places like Iran, and threatens countries like that of Haiti with gunboats off their coast while installing puppet governments. And for what? And who benefits from all this? The fucking capitalists, I'm sorry. That's who benefits. None of us benefit off those wars. And if the benefits are seen, they're very short term. We are destroying our future and we are allowing these capitalists to destroy our futures. Capitalists will continue to destroy the world if we let them. We are more powerful than we are made to believe. Today we stand here among people from different political backgrounds and of different and distinct political ideologies, calling for the expansion of a united front against fascism. We need a united front because the things I mentioned above that seem foreign, strange, far away, that big ass boulder that's far away and disconnected are all intertwined, they're all together. So our efforts and strategies should also be intertwined. We must find our primary points of unity. We have to understand that none of us will survive without the abolition of capitalism. That we must stop going along to get along with capitalism and imperialism. That the bombs dropped on schoolgirls in Iran or fishermen off the coast of Venezuela don't just explode there and kill people there. They impact us and bond us with the oppressed people of the world. We must stand in solidarity against imperialist wars. You don't gotta know nothing to know that when these people are bombing those people and telling them it's for your own good and to protect you, all you gotta do is walk to the grocery store, look at your little phone, and see how much money you got, and see how much a pack of meat costs, and listen to the politicians that tell you, hey, just eat liver. All right? You don't got to go far to know that those bombs cost millions and millions and billions of dollars that could be used to continue to improve the life of workers here, all workers and all people, and all over the world. Those bombs that weigh 2,000 pounds, they cost a lot more than $2,000. So we must stand in solidarity against these imperialist wars, and we must come together to struggle to build a block of power that is able to win a world that's never been. And so the last thing I'll say is that just like everybody else, I'm an everyday person, man. Like, I have a kid, I have a partner, I have 2 disabled parents, the ones that I mentioned already. I have brothers and sisters who are working class, who depend on contingent labor. Some of them are in organized labor, and some of them are not. What we do is we build where we're at. In our community, we have a garden club that we do programming out of West Athens Victory Garden over there on 105th and Normandy. Every Monday, 4 to 7 p.m. for 3 seasons a year, we run programming. And when we do that programming, we bring intergenerational people together from our communities, elders and kids, and then everybody in between, whatever you decide you are. And we come and we feed each other, and we learn self-defense. One of the things that we teach our people about self-defense is the first thing is to own yourself. So you know what to defend. You learn to breathe. You learn to stretch. You learn to use your senses. So far, AI hasn't taken that away from us. So far. So we use what we have at hand. And we also remind people, you do what you can. None of us here are superheroes. We're everyday people. Everyday people. Grains of sand that make the beach. And everyday people are the ones that are going to come together and stand against this violence that we're facing. Everyday people are already doing that, from the sewing mothers to the neighbors that make food, who grow food, who share medicines. We're going to need all of that because we're going to win. We're going to win. And when labor shuts everything down, when we shut it down, we got to show up for one another. We're going to have to sacrifice. Not everybody has made it, and not everybody will make it. But we got a better chance by taking risks and giving sacrifices. So I know in here we got risk takers. I know it. And if you're not a risk taker yet, just wait. Don't wait till you're invited forcefully. Join now. Thank y'all. All right. I'm going to pass the mic now to the brother Ron Gochez of Unión del Barrio, who has been doing tremendous work over the last couple of years especially, but for a long time in the community. So the word is over to Brother Ron.
Thank you. Welcome everybody, thank y'all for being here today. My name is Ron Gochez. I'm a member of Unión del Barrio. I'm also a teacher, that's what I do for a living. I'm a proud member of UTLA, United Teachers Los Angeles. I'm a history teacher, so I'm a history nerd, so I know some of the answers to some of the questions. Where did Make America Great Again come from? It comes from a quote. Does anyone know who came up with that quote? But it wasn't America. I'll give you a hint. The quote was, "Make Germany great again." Anybody who know who it is now? Hitler. That's where that quote comes from. So when you talk about dog whistles, that's what that is. That's saying, I am using a quote by Hitler, who was an open fascist, right? And so that is the dog whistle of all dog whistles. As talking about the movement today with the unions, in 1954, the same year, más o menos, when they did a coup against Guatemala, because they said that their president was a dictator and a communist. And right after they did, crazy irony, right after they did a coup, an attack, and they took out the president of Iran. Wow, that sounds quite familiar right now. In 1954, did you know that 35% of all American workers were members of a union? 35%. Do you guys know roughly today what percent of all workers in this country are members of a union? 9%. On a good day, 10%. So how did we go from 35% to 10%? I'm not a math teacher, but that's a big drop. That talks about the attack against workers and the attack against unions. Why? Because that's a pillar of fascism. One of the first things that Adolf Hitler did in Germany was to outlaw unions. Did you know that? So the fascists know the power of unions, or at least the potential power of unions. So what are we going to do when it's no longer legal to be a member of SCIU or UTLA or any union, when the unions become illegal? I'm from El Salvador. In El Salvador, the unions became illegal. So you know what the unions did? They fought back. And I'm not talking about with posters. I'm talking about with because there was no other way. In fascism, history teaches us there's only one way to defeat fascism. Only one way. And that's the only way. So what we're trying to do right now is to stop fascism from consolidating to getting to that point. I was just teaching the Holocaust last week to my students in high school. And I was telling them, Hitler didn't start killing our Jewish brothers and sisters on the first day of the Holocaust. First, they started by criminalizing them, demonizing them, as you said before. Making people hate them. Then they started deporting them. Uh-oh, that sounds familiar. They started deporting the people from their communities and putting them into ghettos. That sounds familiar. Then after the ghetto, they put them in concentration camps. Today they call them detention centers. There's steps to this. The fascists are consolidating their Plan 2025. So if we let them get to their point of where it's full-blown fascism, then at that point, unions will be illegal. There will be no more elections. That is what fascism means. And for those of us from Nuestra America, or what white people call Latin America, we know damn well what that means because we know fascism. In Argentina, in Bolivia, in many countries in Nuestra America, and in Guatemala and El Salvador, we have the history of fascism. And in every single case where we see fascism, there's only one way that we have defeated them. And it's not by protesting. Because in fascism, protesting is not legal. And so we have to be able to organize at a different level. The sister said more radical. We have to organize at a different level. The unions, look, today I'm not representing my union. Sister here is, I think. So I can speak on behalf of Unión del Barrio. Some people may not like this, but we'll say it. The unions have been co-opted. They have. That's right. The workers, the rank and file, may not, but a lot of the union leadership, not our brother Cliff, but many others have been co-opted. When unions were strong in this country, they were led and founded by, I have to say, socialists, anarchists, communists. Those are the people who founded a lot of our unions. But today, if you self-identify as a socialist or a communist or an anarchist in a lot of unions, you're out. Because they have been co-opted. And so that leads to the 10%. And so what happens if we do turn? And we are very clear politically. Brother was talking about capitalism. That's a big term. Not all of us understand clearly what that means. But it's the system that we have right here and right now. And so, as unions, in this country, unions are fighting to become part of the middle class. In our countries, unions are fighting to have no classes, to have no social classes. That's called socialism or communism. You see the difference? So here, we're trying to make a better wage, but at the expense of who? Where we know if only 10% of all workers belong to a union, then what the hell does that mean for the 90% of the workers who don't belong to a union? You understand that? How that's dividing the workers? And so that's why they have to make sure that the unions don't oppose the system or the state. So I'll tell a quick story. Several years ago, I was taking a community college class just for the hell of it. I was taking a class. And I had a presentation. Some folks came to present in the class, and they were trying to recruit the students to participate in the program. And by the way, the presenters were from, let's just say they were unions here locally in Los Angeles. And they were there to recruit students. And you know what they were trying to recruit us students to do? They were trying to recruit us to go to Venezuela to get rid of the government of Venezuela. And those were the unions. That wasn't Trump. That wasn't the Democrats officially. It was the unions. And I was like, what the hell is this? Because for us who are socialists, we support the government of Venezuela. We support the government of Cuba. And if you want to know why we support them, we can talk a little bit afterwards. But we're proud to say that. Because they do support their workers. They do support their unions. Look at the unions in all of those countries. They support their government. And so today, as workers, we have to be crystal clear. Are we for capitalism or are we against it? Because you can't be in the middle. And if you're for capitalism, then that means that we agree that the vast majority of us as workers are going to stay poor. That's a fundamental, absolute necessity of capitalism. You have to have the majority be poor so that a few can be rich. That's what capitalism is. And so that's what we have to be able to be clear about. And the last thing I'll say is this, about organizing. As some of y'all may know, Unión del Barrio started the community patrols. Now across the country, some people call it the rapid response stuff against against ICE. We started that work because we understood that we have to defend our communities. Are the Republicans going to defend us from ICE raids? No. Are the Democrats going to defend us from ICE raids? No. That's a question that some of us in the labor movement are still confused about. But let's not forget, did y'all hear what Hillary Clinton said 2 weeks ago? She was boasting. She was boasting about how she said, my husband, Bill Clinton, right? My husband and Barack Obama deported more people than Trump. But we didn't kill American citizens. So we're supposed to clap? Who built? If anyone here has been to Tijuana, you know the wall? The wall's been there since 1994. You know who built the wall there? It wasn't Trump. It was Bill Clinton. You know who built those dog cages for our children in those detention centers? Barack Obama. You know who continued that immigration deportation machine? Biden. We gotta be honest. And do our unions support those schools? Yes, they do. You see the confusion? And so that's why for me as a Unión del Barrio, we say today, we have to be very clear on who the enemy is, man. If we're supporting one enemy versus another, then how the hell do we think we're gonna win? And so we have to be crystal clear about that stuff. We are going to continue to organize the community patrols. We go out in the mornings and we control our community, but now that's not enough. Fascism is consolidating. You know they hired 10,000 more agents, and even one of their own trainers has recently come out and resigned because he said that they're not receiving the training necessary. They're being trained to break the law. So dudes from ICE are resigning because they're doing things so backwards. And so what we know is that shit's about to get a lot worse. They have more resources, more agents. You saw how they're buying warehouses all over this country to turn them into detention centers or what we call concentration camps. What the hell do you think those are for? Yeah, it's for all of us. And so if we let them get to that stage, then they're gonna take us out. And so Unión del Barrio in the next month will be publicly announcing our next level of resistance, our next level of community-based organization to defend our communities from ICE. You will make it public in about a month, so be on the lookout. We'll put that on social media. Beyond the patrols, but building casa por casa, cuadra por cuadra. That's how we have to organize. That's the only way we have. That's the only chance we have. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right. So the next speaker that we have, thank you, Brother Ron, we have Sister Maria Miranda from UTLA, elementary vice principal? President. Okay, sorry. I just saw the vice and I went back to being a little kid. Elementary vice president Maria Miranda from UTLA, sharing some words and some insights as well from the education sector. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, so Maria Miranda, I am a product of LAUSD. I was a teacher I've been a teacher educator for 25 years. I was in the classroom for 21. In the last 7 years, I taught in the kindergarten classroom. So I represent 39,000 members at UTLA as the elementary vice president. And since the elections of November, what was it now? 2024, yeah, it seems like so far away and it's less than 2 years. UTLA has always tried to bring in some of the common good demands into our contract. One of them was to start immigration support for students and families. And that's how I got into the immigration justice work that UTLA is moving forward. In November, we realized we were in trouble, right? I was in the classroom when Trump 1.0 happened, when students were put in cages, and those same children that were put in cages were showing up into our classrooms, were breaking down and crying and letting us know what was happening. We had parents walking in with ankle bracelets. We had parents having to seek support and help. We had parents who were being targeted outside of schools, students who were afraid to go to school. So we knew that 2.0 was going to be a lot worse. We knew this because of Project 2025. We knew that that schools were going to become vulnerable, and we started planning. We started to work with the district in terms of how can we do this. And the district has been pretty good about putting out some stuff, but our job, I think, as a union is to ensure that it's not performative, right? That they don't say they have legal services and just have a list of names and then you're on your own. We've been working with the committee to try and make sure that what they say they're offering the families is really a resource that families can use. That if families say they need a lawyer, that we call the district. I tell the parents, call me every day, and right after I hang up with you, I will call the district every day until you get the support that you need. Because as you know, right now, we have hundreds of folks who need support, legal support. And really, there's a lack of capacity to support a lot of our families. But the only way that we're getting support for our students and for their parents is by insisting and making sure that the district hears from our families, and sometimes it means that we have to apply that pressure. So we are the ones calling every single day and making sure that they're supporting. One thing that we've learned is that if a family is at risk, that they do have to keep their kids enrolled. Even after being deported, there's a way to keep students enrolled in the district. So we encourage families to keep students enrolled as much as possible, even if one of the parents has been detained, that students remain enrolled, because that is how students have access to the resources that the district has. The way that we've been organizing our school sites has been a little different, obviously, than what Unión del Barrio is doing. Unión del Barrio, there's different levels of risk, right, that folks are willing to take. What we've been doing at our school sites is we've been educating our membership on the district policy, which is very clear that we do not hand over any student without a judicial warrant. We don't even get to that point, because if you look at that memo, teachers are not involved at all in the process. It's administration, and they're supposed to call legal counsel, and they're supposed to ask for a warrant, and they're supposed to call school police, because no one should have access to any of our students. And even if they have a warrant, the likelihood of a child being taken from a school without the district interfering is low. Now, we already saw that the federal government attempted to take some of our students, right? They went to 2 elementary schools with a list of names, and they wanted access. And the principals there did the right thing. They did not allow them access to the students. But I think they were testing, right? They were wanting to see if we were in LA just going to hand over students. And they found out that we weren't going to just hand over our students. There are, like I mentioned, there are folks in education who are willing to take different risks, right, for kids, but most teachers, when anything serious is starting to happen, we really do see our students as an extension of ourselves. I don't have my own children, but I've always known that my number one job is to protect my students. And we take that role very seriously. And I know that at the high school level, it looks different, but at the elementary level, we've seen what teachers are capable of, right? Oftentimes giving their own lives to protect students. That is ingrained in us. So now we have to get that message out to 39,000 members. And how do we get them to know that they have to protect the rights of students, right? And that they have to enforce, regardless of their own personal politics, that they have to enforce district policy that protects students. Now, we've also had a lot of educators who do work with either Unión del Barrio or UTLA or any other organization that's protecting the school. We have folks who do that as well, and they do that, you know, at their own risk. I myself have also engaged in some of that work, but that's not something that the union is doing. We connect our folks with people who want to do that work. We support the organizations who want to do that work. The way that we help with that work is by organizing our sites, and we do have multiple sites who are organizing with the school sanctuary teams. And they are putting together a network, right, a communication network. They are mapping their neighborhoods so that they know what's happening. Some of them do patrols, not all of them. Some of them are sticking to the basics, which is knowing how to keep students safe, having a communication network, knowing what to do if they need to go on lockdown, knowing how to get kids to parents, and organizing parents so that parents can do, some of them have like a carpool plan in case students need to be taken home, picked up, and some parents can't pick up their own kids. So there's a wide variety of what different schools are doing, and everyone is establishing that plan based on what their community needs, and we're supporting that. And we also have mutual aid, right? How do we support the students and their parents and the needs of the community? And we're putting those things all together. It can be something as simple as providing food, short term, or something where we support families accessing rent relief or assistance with bills. And like I mentioned earlier, connecting them to legal services. The other way that we've tried to support and defend our community is by making sure that there is language in our contract, our educator contract, that supports students and their families. That has also been something that has worked for us, and we have extended that language in our contract to ensure that our families continue to be supported, but also we have educators who are documented, right? And they need supports as well. These are employees that have that protection, and we're trying to look into how do we extend that protection for those employees that are documented, who are also in danger. We just saw that some of them are being targeted as well. So it's been a lot of work, and we know that we can work with our communities because oftentimes the same moms that show up and volunteer, the same parents that show up to support their kids are the same ones fighting for our schools. And now we're gonna have to fight for our communities, and we're gonna have to do it together. So I do wanna make sure that if you need to work with your school, you have to reach out to the chapter chair of that school, and those chapter chairs should be able to tell you if they have a school sanctuary team that you can be part of to support, and if they don't have one, then you ask, how do we start one? Because sometimes teachers need to be nudged a little too, right? And they need to make sure that the structures of the school site are there so that we can protect students and families in our neighborhoods.
Thank you so much. Before I introduce our next guest, you don't know what people are doing until they share, right? So again, the purpose of this, right, like they asked on the news, like what do you hope to accomplish, right? Like part of it is like, so we educate and learn from one another, and we understand that there's people doing things that we can plug in, right, in those things. We don't have to start anything by ourselves. No one does any of this stuff by themselves, And I'll say the other thing is that these things that happen in these schools, and this impact, we talk, we've all talked about different levels of this stuff, right? And different moments of what's happening right now. If you get rattled, by the idea that things are going to escalate, right? Like in the possibility of intensification with other levels of organizing that's going to be required, it doesn't have to get that way, right? Like, and that's the invitation, right? But the other part is that this trickles down all the way to those kids. And this has been happening way before, like was mentioned, Trump. I worked in a school district at Lenox, and when all the surge of, in the early 2000s and mid-aughts of, 2006, 2007, when Central American kids were coming on unaccompanied on those trains, coming up there and coming into the school district, our friends were teachers, we were educators, and them kids were using a bathroom on themselves because of the stuff that they had experienced. They were 8, 9 years old. This stuff is terrorizing our people. We know in our community garden, for example, we build those things may not seem as militant to some people, or as radical, right? But you don't have an emergency plan if you don't know your neighbors, right? That's what one of our neighbors says. You don't know what it's like having to receive papers, right? Or maybe some of y'all do know, but receiving papers from somebody who's not your family to sign away their custody in the meantime if they get deported. We get to do that because we do that work in the community. It's sad. It's sad to know that people are that scared that they got to figure out a plan if they get taken away, that where their kids are going to go because they don't have family here, But we plan for that. That's organizing. That's the care word, right? So radical, militant, militarized resistance is also a form of love, To me, none of that stuff is different. So I did want to make those connections because some people may hear that as disconnected, but I don't. And I know that none of us here do. So, anyway, I'll shut up. I'll go ahead and pass to my brother Cliff Smith, the business manager of Local 36, one of the organizers in the United Front Against Fascism, who's also been out here for decades in the LA and also on the East Coast, organizing for justice and dignity for working people by whatever means are accessible to us, right? So here's Brother Cliff Smith.
Thank you all for taking the time on a Sunday afternoon to come and have this discussion. Thank you to everybody on this panel, who's important leaders in our community for sharing with us, and especially thank you to the members of my union, Local 36, for giving me your trust and confidence to represent you not only against your employers, the contractors, but also to be able to organize these types of events. And we wanted to come out of our union hall. We hold lots of meetings in our union offices, but it's important to come out into the communities, into the neighborhoods to have these discussions because, like Brother Ron said, 90% of workers are not in a union. And in the private sector, where our members work, union membership is below 6%. It's almost insignificant. It didn't used to be that way, as Ron said. After World War II, union membership was at 35%. And the CIO, which is now the AFL-CIO, was part of an international labor federation of workers and unions that had led the fight to defeat fascism, to defeat the Nazis in World War II. It was called the World Federation of Trade Unions. Ron said the reason why union membership has fallen from 35% to now 10% is because of the attacks on labor, which is true partly. The other part is that the weakness and failure of labor's leadership that's made compromises, concessions, and collaborated with the enemies of the working class. Why our union membership has fallen from 35% to 10% and to below 6% in the private sector. In 1949, under the Red Scare of the Cold War, the State Department put pressure on the CIO to withdraw from the World Federation of Trade Unions and to form a competing international labor federation with yellow labor federations, sellout, compromised labor federations, which now exists, called the International Trade Union Confederation. And about 2 years ago, the International Secretary General of the International Trade Union Confederation, which the AFL-CIO is a leading affiliate of, was arrested and removed from power caught up in a bribery scandal in Europe, along with several members of the European Union Parliament, because he was taking payoffs from the government of Qatar, leading into the construction projects and the development of the World Cup that took place in Qatar. He was taking bribe money because thousands and thousands of immigrant workers from Pakistan and other countries were being brought into Qatar to do all of the construction work and being killed. Thousands of workers, immigrant workers with no rights whatsoever, being killed to set up the facilities and the infrastructure and the stadiums for the World Cup. And the International Trade Union Confederation took payoffs to stay quiet, to celebrate the reforms and the workers' rights that existed in Qatar when actually workers were being brutalized and killed. But the AFL-CIO said nothing, made no public statement, Liz Schuler, when the International Secretary General of the International Trade Union Confederation was arrested and caught with 50,000 euros in a suitcase in his hotel room and removed from his position. Liz Schuler was on the Credentials Committee when Luca Visentini, the Secretary General, was elected into his position of the International Trade Union Confederation. You can look on her Twitter account, you can look on the ITUC Twitter feed and see her standing at the podium with him when he was put into power, and said nothing to the United States workers to explain the scandal, to explain the sellout. Now the World Cup is coming into our cities. But with the same union officials still control these positions, they're still making the same deals. Local 36 became the first labor union in the United States to affiliate to the World Federation of Trade Unions since 1949, when the CIO surrendered and caved in to the State Department. And we were told by our international president that the AFL-CIO national office prohibits us from affiliating to the World Federation of Trade Unions. We're told that we're not permitted to, even though our members voted democratically, to allocate their dues money to pay our union fees. We were told that we were prohibited from affiliating. The World Federation of Trade Unions represents over 100 million union members all around the world, mostly in the global south now, but still also in countries like Greece and France and Italy, where if the government attacks the workers, if they try to raise the retirement age, the workers don't just go out and have a protest downtown, they shut down the railroads, they shut down the airports, they shut down the schools and the hospitals until the government is brought to its knees. These are strong labor unions that support the community. This is the labor leadership that Local 36 supports. So our members voted to remain affiliated to the World Federation of Trade Unions in defiance of our international president, in defiance of Liz Schuler and the AFL-CIO. And I would encourage every union member here, look up the World Federation of Trade Unions, because we're not going to be taught about it in our labor history programs in the United States. You have to go and find out about it. To rejoin the international labor movement. Don't talk about solidarity. Follow through on it. Because as Alejandro said, the interests of workers right here in Los Angeles are the same as the interests of workers in Venezuela or in Cuba or in any country in the world. We have the same enemies and the same interests. And so let me start by saying we need to have regime change right here in the United States. As conditions deteriorate and antagonism tighten, it is critical, more now than ever, that all forces in the interests of the working class and oppressed people find minimum levels of working unity to build collective work and develop solutions to common problems. Whatever our differences, they cannot be greater than our fight against our common enemy of monopoly capitalism and imperialism. And as the great labor leader Fred Hampton said, nothing is more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all. And there is no unity without struggle. 100,000 people will come out to celebrate the Dodgers parade, but they have not built unity or organization. Our conflicts cannot be pushed aside. We need to have our differences openly and above board, before the people. We need to criticize and embrace criticism in order to find correct strategies and win the confidence of the community. Most importantly, we need a united front. No single outlook alone can win. We need all the people's ideas brought forward. We all must be represented, whether you are with the nationalists, or the vegetarians, or the Baptists, or like me, the communists. During Hitler's rise, as Ron explained to us, in 1935, the communist leadership of the working class that was blamed and put on trial for burning the German government building, the Reichstag, described fascism as, quote, the open terrorist dictatorship of the most reactionary, most chauvinistic, and most imperialist elements of finance capital. To say it is the direct rule of force by the capitalist ruling class without the pretense of democracy, without the rights to organize or protest or vote. In 1933, the German parliament building, the Reichstag, was burned in February 1933. The next day, the German government passed the Reichstag fire decree, suspending civil liberties, allowing the arrests of communists and social democratic leaders. By March 15th, 10,000 communists had been arrested. In March, the Enabling Act was passed, allowing Hitler's cabinet to enact laws without the parliament's consent, the Congress, the Reichstag, cementing his dictatorship. This is what Trump's regime calls the unitary executive in Project 2025, what Steve Bannon calls dismantling the administrative state. In May of 1933, all the trade unions were abolished and their leaders were arrested. And in July of 1933, all opposition political parties were banned and the Nazi Party was declared the only legal political party in Germany. This is between February and July. With blinding speed, the entire country was shut down. This could happen overnight, in a matter of weeks and months in the United States. And we're concerned that what we see happening internationally, the attacks on Venezuela, the attacks right now in Iran, is to set in motion a pretense, a justification to be able to undermine and sabotage the upcoming November elections, which our trade union leaders in the Democratic Party are telling us is what is going to save and protect us from Trump, from MAGA, from the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and the 3%ers, from his street fighting gangs, from ICE, the November midterm elections, and the courts. If anybody thinks that the Supreme Court is going to protect the working and oppressed people in the United States from Donald Trump, I think they're not paying attention. Dr. Martin Luther King said that we should never forget that everything Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal. So the main threat is from the ruling class of monopoly capital. We oppose opportunism that directs workers to join capitalist organizations like the Democratic Party as their solution to class oppression. This is how somebody like Marquise Harris Dawson, the council member for this district, gets the endorsement from the Labor Federation to be the city council president, and then switches sides and joins the Chamber of Commerce to vote against a minimum wage increase. When there is no difference to their conditions in who controls the government. When ICE attacks hit our streets last June, I'm glad though that Rick Caruso was not the mayor. But that does not make me a Bassist, a Karen Bass affiliate. It matters who's in the positions of power, and it's our failure as organizations, as community leaders, as unions, to not have built independent working class political power, to build a workers' party, to have run our candidates for the positions of city council and school board and mayor. We could run candidates across the city in every district without worrying that Trump and the Republicans are going to win because we're running a spoiler candidate. At the national level, it's different, but locally, we could run for every position in the city government. Heads up against the Democratic Party, and shame on us for not having built the unity and the clarity to be able to put these strategies in place. It's our fault that the city council is represented entirely by the Democratic Party instead of by workers. But it means that we can recognize that as we have yet failed to build a workers' party for people's democracy that can run campaigns to win power, until we sort that out, we must maneuver in the political landscape around us. There was a difference between Hitler and the bourgeois Weimar Republic that preceded him. And there is a difference between MAGA's Trump fascism and the imperialist Democrats. It's within these margins that the differences must be recognized, and it is the obligation of the people's leaders to identify and exploit the contradictions even amongst the ruling class. We call this town hall to advance discussion, to have our disagreements and debates openly before the community. Lenin said, march separately, but strike together. And we are looking at May 1st, International Workers' Day, to launch the unified citywide strike. Thank you all for your time, and we want to have comments and participation from everybody in the floor. Thank you.
That's how you get in trouble. All right, so thank you everybody for your words, for your insights, for your inspiration. You know, I think your clarity, your historical analysis, your social analysis, your political analysis, and then your action, right? Everybody up here has done something and continues to do something, right? Like that's the point, right? Like that's one of the other points, right? So I want to open it up to anyone in the crowd who wants to share anything. There's a mic right there. You can come up and speak into the mic, share any thoughts, anything that you've done as well that you want to contribute, anything that you're afraid of. Shit, I mean anything, really, we got to put it on the table. So feel free to come up to the mic. Erica.
Hi, everybody. Hold on.
Yeah, hold on. Tough? It's coming here.
Ahora sí, ya. Hi, everybody. My name is Erica Short. Something that I've always admired about Unity is that we can all be from all over the place and come together. One thing that I always see when I'm out in the community doing things and volunteering my time is that there are a lot of people that don't know where to start or they're afraid because conditionally we've been told from a very long time, you know, don't get in trouble. You calladito te ves más bonito, like that's the thing that we tell our people, but my daughter's here, she's 10, she's with me every time we go to actions and activities because I was little when it was almost going to be that California created a criminality for me to go to school because my parents were immigrants and I myself was an immigrant. So to me it's important, but the thing that I also notice is that we have to do better to bring other people to this table that are on the fence and that are worried and they don't know. So one action that I've been doing, this is more of a comment, to help people, bring people that you might be friends with that are on the side, you know, although I do kind of hold it against them sometimes, I always say, you know, like, there's always time for you to cross that line. There's always time for you to open up your eyes and see what's happening. And so I live in the Antelope Valley. I live in the furthest part of the Antelope Valley, in the middle of nowhere desert, where it's 30 miles everywhere in every direction. And I make it a point to continue to go out and to not worry. But I always run into people that say, oh, it's 5 minutes away plus traffic, 20 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna make it. So we really need to make sure that we invite more people because there's more room in here, right? And it's important that people realize that we have to be comfortable with talking about policies that are putting us into these positions of oppression, and to not be afraid to have these discussions, and to really, anywhere you go, to start talking about this stuff. With Trump 1.0, we were coming back from Mexico from a family trip, and it was decided that how dare my husband, who's white, marry somebody that looks like me. How dare I have a child that doesn't look like me because of the skin color. We were in the process of being separated. I knew my rights. I knew what I wanted, what I needed to affirm, and they didn't separate us. But I did get to witness some of these cages that CBP put in the airports, and my daughter's too young to realize that. And I worked really hard with therapy to help her not be afraid of any law enforcement, but at the same time, it's hard to take that trauma away. And I can't imagine what families are going through now. What I went through was only a 6-hour separation from my family. I can't imagine what other people are going through. So just remember that I drove 2.5 hours, do it all the time, and I do it and I don't complain about it. So if there's actions happening in your community and they're only 5 minutes away or you can walk down the street, don't stop. Just get up, go. And if you feel like you're not doing enough, just by wanting to be a part of something is the first step, and don't be ashamed if you can't do more. Unfortunately, our organization isn't in a union, which I hope we will one day, but community organizations, 501c3s, unions, we all have a vital role to play, and it's important that we connect with each other, not just locally, but like across the county, because we have a lot of room to fight for, and I do believe that things are going to get worse. So thank you all for taking your time on a Sunday to being out here.
Anyone want to go up there?
Hey guys, my name is Mike. I'm here representing the LA chapter of Refuse Fascism. Our message is one of the United Front demands, which is Trump must go. The whole regime, as other people have pointed out, it isn't just Trump. The whole regime needs to go. And you know, unity is definitely important. Like, it's absolutely critical that across, like people have been talking about, across political ideologies, across different sections of society, whether you're talking the unions, whether you're talking religious life, different sections of society, we all have to really come together and have this, you know, have our different lanes, definitely. You know, the different lanes are super important. The rapid response stuff is super important, but ultimately also all come together behind, you know, clarity and focus. Because I still identify as a Democrat, but one of the things I see, one of the many things I see that's wrong with great liberal movements a lot of times is they have great ideas and great aspirations, but they're very scattered brained sometimes, have a lot of demands all at once. And none of these demands are likely to be met with Trump in power, with this regime in power, right? Absolutely, ICE needs to be abolished, for example. What are the chances that that happens under Trump, right? And if let's say ICE was somehow abolished under Trump, they'd just find another way, another organization, or another mechanism to terrorize non-white people. And an important point there is that Alex Preddy, ICE didn't actually execute Alex Preddy. That was CBP, Customs and Border Protection. So that right there is an example of we really need to be focused on, at least from our perspective, at Refuse Fascism, right at the top, Trump and the regime. And how we do that, you know, talking about disruption. We definitely are going to be supporting the May Day action, very important. Another piece of that is how do we actually get this regime out? You know, that can seem like a pie in the sky, like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen, that's a nice idea, but how do you actually make that happen? A lot of people don't realize that because so much crap is happening every day, we can't keep track of it, and a lot of the international things that are happening aren't covered in the media. Even on channels like MSNBC or now MS Now, didn't even cover what happened in Bulgaria in December. In Bulgaria in December, through mass sustained nonviolent protest, the whole government resigned. So that's, and a really important point there also was that a lot of these protests were done after workout. My bad. A lot of these protests were done after work hours. So people did go to work. They came out, protested, made their demands clear, and then went back to work, came out again, and came out relentlessly. Now, we probably do need things like a general strike, like pockets of a general strike, and that's a really important point too, whoever made that, was that you can't be too discouraged when you're part of actions that feel smaller, because every little piece of resistance that people engage in matters. Because it all shapes the atmosphere we're in and moves things a certain direction. You know, so sacrifices need to be made. Small actions are as important as big actions, but there is a lane for people to protest in a sustained way while they're still going to work. And one step we're taking towards that is we're building towards a two-day protest to kind of model for LA, start modeling for LA what sustained protest looks like. So on April 17th and 18th, right after No King's Day, a few weeks after No King's Day, we're planning a two-day protest. Things are still in the works there, but to kind of model that Bulgarian type of idea for LA and also build our chapter, build more organizers, get people involved, get people seeing that, hey, this is possible and this is something we can work on. So encourage you to definitely support everybody in the United Front and find your lane, and whatever your lane is, try to bring that to an organization. Now, sometimes that's going to be individual, sometimes that's going to be unaffiliated, but when you can bring it to an organization, whether it's us or whether it's any other organization up here, it can be really powerful to help channel that in a certain direction.
Thank you.
Hey everybody. My name is Mark Bender. I'm a member of Cliff's Cliff and Yvonne and everybody else's United Front Against Fascism group, and I'm thrilled to be here at this meeting today. And I've been to some other meetings in different communities of the United Front Against Fascism, and I can tell you that, you know, I'm from the West Valley of Los Angeles, and what we're doing there is we're having sustained protests every Saturday. We've been doing it for 8 months, of people in the West Valley, of West San Fernando Valley, many people who have never gotten out of their houses to protest the government in any way, every single Saturday for the last 8 months against Trump and his fascist scumbags. And, you know, we've been getting 60 to 80 people on bad days and 2,000 or 3,000 people on the No King's Day. And I think Brother Ron points out correctly, protests are great, but protests are not going to bring this monster down. And a lot of people, even in our West Valley group, are thinking like, yeah, we're down on this protest, we're down in coming out on Saturdays, we're down when we get 3,000 people, but what else is there to do? What next? What next? And you know, the one thing I want to add before I sit down again is that 20 years ago, when I was working in the union movement, and I worked in the union movement for 40 years of my fucking life, there was something called the Labor Party in America. And I don't mean the Labor Party from the 60s that were fighting with each other about Marxism, Leninism. This was the Labor Party by the American Union Movement, brought by the United Steelworkers. It was the Oil, Chemical, Atomic Workers Union, 675 down in Carson. And it was all over the country, and we had a very strong chapter here in Los Angeles. And what we wanted to do is build up an institutional democratic force that was not the Democratic Party, that represented justice and basically socialism in America. And what happened to that? It died because the mainstream union movement wouldn't back it. So here we are today, not against Reagan, which destroyed any of the progress of the Johnson administration, and we know what Johnson did in Vietnam, that other dirty word that we're not allowed to talk about. We're not against Bush, and we thought Bush was the worst ever in 2000, and now we have this clown monster fascist. And you know, we have these great speakers, we're here. The question really remains, what is to be done? Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Alejandro y quiero darles las gracias por habernos invitado a estos eventos para saber uno lo que está pasando en esta actualidad de lo del presidente Trump, ¿verdad? Porque la Unión 37, me preguntan a mí, ¿qué estás haciendo aquí? Y yo le contesté, yo estoy en la Unión 36 local de Los Ángeles, que es mi cuñado, Raúl Dueñas, y mi esposo, Gil Dueñas, que tiene una trayectoria que desde muy cierto tiempo han trabajado, ¿verdad? Y yo trabajo en un lugar donde hay gente, conozco mucha gente. Yo trabajo en un recicle de Iguanes Recicle y como dicen todos ustedes, conocemos mucha gente. No importa sea blanco, sea centroamericano, sea mexicano, lo que sea, ¿verdad? Pienso que todos merecemos respeto, todos venimos a este lugar para apoyar, ayudar, y desafortunadamente a mí me da una tristeza todo lo que está pasando, lo que está haciendo Trump, porque yo comparto con mucha gente y hay una señora, no importa que sea del color que sea, a ella la operaron del pecho de cáncer y gracias a Trump no tiene beneficios ni de seguro ni de nada. Ella desafortunadamente está viviendo en su carro y en la calle. ¿Por qué? Por todo lo que está haciendo Trump. Y no por eso uno no va a dejar de ayudar a esa persona. Obvio que tenemos que apoyarnos entre todos y ayudar, no importa la raza que sea y quien sea. Por eso les doy muchas gracias por darme la oportunidad de conocer a cada uno de ustedes y me siento orgullosa de mi cuñado, de mi esposo, por ser parte de esta, que es una unión, de la Unión Local 36, ya sea como dice el Señor, sea de Los Ángeles, de donde sea, es la unión. ¿Ok? Muchas gracias.
I'm going to translate in English for those that didn't understand. She's here to say thank you for inviting her and everyone else to listen to the stuff that's happening, to understand what's happening with the current climate, the political climate, the Trump organization, and all the things that are happening on the streets. It's very sad to see what's going on, and this is something that she has witnessed, especially when it comes to helping people in her community that have been affected by the things that have been happening, including individuals who have found themselves to be homeless, living out in their cars. We just have to deal and roll with the punches as they keep coming. But one thing is for sure is that she will continue to support them, because what else do you do when people are in need, right? You pick each other up and you help each other. And it's important to hear everybody saying what they're saying, because it's something that brings everybody together. And she's very proud that her husband and her son are part of Union Local 36, because it's not just about this community, but like Brother Cliff said, it's internationally, it's whether you're here or you're from somewhere else, that the union has to remain a union. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for the comments. Pásale. Go ahead.
My name is Mark Friedman. I'm a member of the Machinists Union 1484 and also the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee. I'm not speaking in the name of that committee because that committee is focused only on ending the blockade of Cuba. And I thank Local 36 and Cliff for its year-long support in our efforts to end the blockade of Cuba. And right now, Cuba is in dire situation with the oil blockade imposed by Trump. I think we have to ask ourselves why this room is not full, why there aren't more people here. And it's not the lack of organizing efforts by the organizers of this, but it reflects the lower level of political consciousness of working people in this country, as compared to those in Europe and other places that have gone through a lot more political battles. How do we take this discussion into the LA Federation of Labor? You can't go around existing unions, right? We have to be active in them to raise the political consciousness, because even though they represent a small percentage of the population, they carry much more weight. If the ILWU were to take action to stop the shipment of arms to Israel, they would have shut down the entire West Coast and it would have stopped the shipment of the arms to Israel. The local in Oakland did this around apartheid in South Africa. They refused to load and unload ships from South Africa under apartheid as an act of solidarity. So how do we get to that point? Okay, it's a challenge on Palestine because virtually all Republicans and Democrats receive money from AIPAC, right? And the AFL-CIO gets their section of that through contracts to various companies that may be unionized, including the Machinists Union, etc. So how do we get to that point of labor solidarity in the broader movement, where we can have this type of discussion in the LA Federation of Labor and in the other unions that are part of that, hundreds of thousands of workers in LA or statewide? The state of the labor movement and the national positions that are taken here are also reflective on the international level, which people have spoken to. The AFL-CIO has supported every U.S. war, period. First World War, Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War, attacks against Afghanistan, against Iraq, and now we'll see. They did say a little bit when Trump went in and kidnapped Maduro. Okay, but it was a peep. It was not any organization. Where were most of the unions when their union members were being attacked by ICE? There were a few actions. The SEIU was involved more than others. The UTLA, to all their credit, right, involved a lot more. But where was the majority of unions? And even in Minneapolis, where tens of thousands of people were marching and won a big victory, but it took the death of 2 people to get that. It took the sustained mobilizations, and thousands of people were involved in the same types of activities that Unión del Barrio organized here in LA, to their credit, and then took those campaigns nationally to help others. So it is out of the fights against ICE. It is out of the labor battles. It is out of the fight to defend abortion rights or affirmative action or even the right to free speech, the right to protest and organize, that the movement to confront fascism will arise. People don't abstractly wake up one day and, oh, I'm gonna fight the fascists. No, it is through their concrete struggle, defending their picket line on the job, defending a demonstration, defending their rights. And so, to me, that is the question of developing consciousness in the labor movement and in other organizations. Lastly, I'll say, as others have pointed to, we cannot be nationalists. We must be internationalists. We are part of an international working class, which means today defending Cuba. It is the only socialist country in the world, and if we lose Cuba, it will be a massive blow to the entire working class worldwide, because Cuba has been the example for 65 years of internationalism, with doctors, with engineers, defending Angola from the invasion by apartheid regime in South Africa. Where are we when it comes to demonstrations protesting the kidnapping of Maduro and his partner? Where was the labor movement? So we have to take an internationalist perspective in terms of that solidarity. And I'm glad Cliff mentioned the World Federation of Trade Unions, which Cuba is part of, and we had meetings in Cuba when we went there. And how do we get to that point, which would mean a political break by a pro-imperialist AFL-CIO? That leadership will shatter. It'll shatter on a local level first, as more locals take more upfront positions of international solidarity and labor solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts folks want to share? And before that, I want to, pass it.
My name's Raul Dueñas. I'm the president for Local 36. And well, what I want to say is that from what I've been watching, like, we've been organizing, we've been doing same thing over and over again, giving out information and everything. But what I noticed that when it comes to getting things done, we're divided. We're not, everybody's not together. Some people decide to hold things till the last minute, and the last minute they want to do something when it's already too late. And well, I seen our own members, some people, like, I know who's gonna help me out, and I already know who I can't even count on. And as a home, we're divided, and I think that that's something that we have to plan. Like, I don't know, just find a way that we could all be on the same channel, I could say, but be together. And I guess that's everything that was on my mind, and I just had to say it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's important. Organize where you are. You know, there's struggles right there within. You don't gotta go look for them anywhere else. They're everywhere you're at your school, shit. Some of them in our house. So I want to go ahead and take a little moment here to recognize folks in the crowd here. Ada Briseño, Unite Here Local 11, President, and Fatima Iqbal Zubair. And both of them are California Assembly District candidates right now. Also want to take the time to acknowledge, members of the Home Depot coalition that are defending our communities and standing with them. I went out to the first few meetings, and I saw folks like Sister Yvonne said, we're just everyday people coming out there. And now I get to see on this group chat all the little things, all the little big things that are done all the time, So just acknowledge you all here, we're all doing our little part and not staying stagnant, and it means the world to someone like me. It keeps me struggling as well. So I want to turn it back to the audience. Anyone else, or even on our panel, anyone else want to share any other thoughts or reflections here?
Sister Fatima and Arek, introduce yourself, please.
All right.
Local 36 endorsing his candidates, California State Assembly.
Thank you. I actually had a question too, so thank you for having us out. So, Ron, I know you're a history teacher. You all have so much knowledge up here. I would like to, and I came later, so maybe I missed this, but I want to hear previous times in history where there's been a general strike and how that's happened. Something that I think about is I know even when unions go on strike now, there's limited funds for the workers, and I love the concept because I'm someone that's spoken up against the system. But what I think about is people that need to put food on the table. How do we sustain that? How long has it been? How do we make sure people get fed? How is that built out? And times in history where that's happened, and how it's still sustained the working class in that general strike. That was my question.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, sister. That's a great question. I think when we use our words, we have to be careful with the words that we use. And so we're talking about for May Day. If it's a one-day thing, by definition, that's not a strike. It's a protest. It can be a day off. It can be a labor stoppage. But a strike is like when UTLA went on strike. It's you don't know how many days you're going to go on strike because you're saying we're not going to work until you do this. So it might take 1 day, it might take 5 days, it might take a month. We saw the nurses union just went on strike for 5 weeks. In other countries, so going to your question, in other countries, real strikes mean that you go and you do not work until the government resigns. So we've seen in Bolivia, we've seen in Ecuador, we've seen in France, we've seen in different countries around the world where the masses of the workers, so not 10%, we're talking about the masses of the workers say we're not going to shop, we're not going to work, we're not going to do anything until the president resigns. And that has happened in many parts of the world. So this can happen. Now, that will never happen on a one-day protest. But a one-day protest can be the beginning. It can be the beginning of getting people, to participate. Many of you probably remember 2006, 2008, here in Los Angeles, for those days when everybody wore a white shirt, the day without an immigrant stuff. We had in Los Angeles about 1.5 million people participating in one day and shut down the city. But you know what happened the next day? Nothing. Nothing. It was back to normal. Everyone back to shopping, back to the Laker game, back to, and the system knows that. They'll let us for 1 day do nothing. It's okay. The next day you'll just buy double the groceries. The next day you'll pump gas. The next day you'll do that. So if it's a real strike, that means we have to really, really sacrifice. And of course, here in this country, probably the biggest example that we have is the farm workers movement, which I have a lot of differences with politically, ideologically, but they were able to take pretty much the poorest workers in the United States, farm workers, and they were able to go on strike. I mean, when we went on strike for like 6 days, that was hard. The farm workers went on strike for 2 years. 2 years. And they didn't have any money, hardly. And so how did they survive? people support, donations from the community, people being able to back each other up. It took serious sacrifice, and you know, are we willing to make that level of sacrifice? And if we're not, okay, but then we can't complain about Trump being in office. We can't complain about everything else. We have to sacrifice. And strikes work, but if we're serious about the strike, this is the last thing I'll say, if we're serious about the strike, they take months, at least months of planning if you're gonna do it right. Because you have to raise money for people who can't pay the rent. You have to raise money for people who won't have any money for food. A real strike is serious work. What we're seeing right now is people on a Tuesday saying, hey, on Friday, nobody go to work, nobody shop on Friday. That's not serious. You can't just make a call on social media and think that's a strike. It's gonna take the labor unions, the churches, the community-based organizations, the masses of the people to participate. That's the only way it can really work. And we have to know we're not gonna have the support of the Republicans or the Democrats. It's gonna be only the people.
I agree. I mean, there are unions that are talking about 2028. So there's a I'm gonna say a small group of unions, but they're beginning that conversation. Some of them are big unions talking about strike in 2028. So that's a ways off. So to me, it's like when you're getting ready, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon that we're gonna go through. So we need to begin somewhere. And I'm glad that we say, we have the opportunity to agree to disagree or to just be able to be in conversation. I did say in the beginning, I cannot speak for the LA Federation of Labor, but at the House of Labor, when I stand in front of 200 people and talk about Project 2025, you have these looks like, what is it? What? Honestly, so for me, wanting to be here today was like, how are we talking about these issues? How are we bringing it back to our kitchen table? To the table where our children are at, to the table where our family is at, where we're concerned about the food on the table, where we're concerned about the roof over our head. It's a conversation that has to begin somewhere. May 1st, we're part of the coalition of Solo el Pueblo, Salva el Pueblo, Shut It Down, Citizenship Now, but it's going to be a flexing of the muscle. And I'm not saying just Friday, let's not go. Let's start every Friday so that we can get ourselves ready.
Thank you.
Yes, Ada Briseño, I just want to say it's a really refreshing conversation. Thank you to my sisters for leading this discussion, and thank you, brother, and to the members of Local 36. There's a lot to reflect on. I've been obviously part of a lot of discussions like this, but as someone who fled a dictator and saw armed men kill Nicaraguans in the street of my country, some family members, this hits home really hard. And as part of the labor movement, I'm a former hotel worker, and I've been running my union for the past 25 years. And recently on strike, the past 2 years, we did intermittent strikes because, we've got to make it last and make a splash to win. So, and planning 2028 strikes along with, so thank you for bringing that up, along with other folks. And so we've let go of other benefits at the negotiating table to make sure that our contracts culminate in 2028, and that has been very, very difficult. So we're gearing up for that, and we're very, we're very excited and determined, and our members are very courageous, the room attendants and dishwashers that we represent. So we're looking forward to May Day. Looking forward to making a dent and standing with everyone. Obviously, I think everybody can be doing more, but we're putting in our piece in whatever way we can in the streets of Los Angeles and wherever we can. And so thank you. I'm also running for assembly because I too, entered democratic politics a little while ago to make sure that workers were centered. in politics, and we can't make a difference from outside of the party, so we have to enter to do it. As an immigrant, we need a voice, and we need to make change. So I'm ready to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to come back to a question that Fatima asked, is that people in much poorer situations go on general strikes all over the world. And I think, and this is just a general comment that I would make to my students, because they ask these kinds of questions as well, right? There's a level of American chauvinism that impacts all of us, right? Where we think we're unique and we don't have to struggle in the same way that the rest of the world has, And so I think logistically, Sister Yvonne, I love everything you said, Sister Yvonne, when you said like every blade of grass, every little pebble to stop the boulder. I think that, and what the sister over here from UTLA said about the logistics that y'all have built already within UTLA and the district, those are the things that are already in place that can be mobilized to do what Ron was talking about and what other people were talking about. Our little garden that can, right? Everything about socializing, everything is inherent in the way that we politicize our people, not through proselytizing, not through getting on our soapbox, but to getting on the ground and to talk about, hey, you know how to make a big ass pot of soup, right? Like that. You know how to take care of kids, right? You know how to sew buttons. You know how to do this, you know how to do that, right? You know T's and yerbas when the medical industry shuts down, right? Because everything, if we want to win, everything will shut down. And so then all our wisdoms and all our insights will come to play, including the other stuff that will need to escalate. But not everyone needs to go on that route. Everything will be needed, right? Not one person has the solution, right? But again, that's the thing, right? And that to us gives us hope, and we mobilize around hope and connection and solidarity and socialism through praxis, without using the words that scare and terrify people, or maybe they scare and terrify people because they don't understand yet, right? But they do understand, because my mom came to this country not speaking English. She's 4'9", she's never weighed more than 105 pounds. She's an indigenous woman, and she figured some stuff out. A lot of people in these communities have figured a lot of things out. And I think we need to remember that, because we forget, right? Because there's that fear line that we have to cross. And we only cross that together when someone's already on the other side, And I think there's a lot of us that are already on the other side, and like Erica said, right? There's some people that are right there, and they're like, I don't know. But all they need is a little pull. All they need is what the brother said, is the material conditions that they face that is gonna get them to come over. Because there is no guarantee for tomorrow, but there is a guarantee what tomorrow looks like if we keep the shit that we have today. And it's only going to get worse, right? And that's a reality, but the promise is possibility, So anyway, that's what I answer to that. I'm seeing the time. Does anyone have any closing comment on the panel here? Any of the other sisters on here want to close?
I just want to offer an opportunity for action. You guys have made the first step. You're here. Probably the 10th step for a lot of you. I know you're all very active. But the next thing that we can do is take some of the materials and spread the word. Like Erica said, who's next to you? Who's close to you? Who can you bring in and join? And if any of these things could be helpful, please do.
The last push is, if you're with an organization, consider showing up. Our numbers are important for May Day. May 1st. I think the action is set to start in the afternoon. It is a Friday, and it'll be in a central location. Please consider not just bringing yourself, but bringing other people. We have to show that we can be united, even if it is for one day. It's not enough, but it's a step. It's another seed that could blossom into something else. And this year is really important for us to do that.
Can I add something to that? Even though May Day is happening in the afternoon, it's important that throughout the county everybody organizes. So create your own actions locally and then mass caravan to the location and have a bigger impact.
For our coalition, the United Front Against Fascism, we're operating as a committee within the May Day Coalition, and we're struggling in that to put forward demands, as Brother Mike had mentioned there are things that we can realize right now in this moment. And we have 4 demands that we want the May Day action to put forward. One, clearly, is that Trump must be removed. The second is that we must build a united front against fascism. But then locally, right here in Los Angeles, we want the chief of police, McDonnell, removed and replaced immediately. He's playing patty cake with Trump and with ICE and with MAGA. He was the sheriff, but he allowed the immigration agents from the federal government into the county jails. And so we voted him out and removed him as the sheriff, got rid of him. And then Mayor Bass put him back in charge of the police department, where now he welcomed the immigration attacks last summer, and then most recently said that he will not enforce a city council law to demand that ICE agents or Border Patrol agents have to identify themselves and not be able to wear masks in our community. He said he will not enforce that law. Chief McDonnell does not represent the community or safety and security, and he must be removed by the mayor. That's our 3rd demand. And our 4th demand is to allow for voting rights in local elections for non-citizen residents. There's 500,000 people in the city of Los Angeles that do not have documentation. They live and work in our communities. Their children go to the schools. They pay taxes, and they should have the right to vote in the local elections, at least for city council, mayor, or school board. And we can amend our city charter to allow them to vote in the next election. But again, the Labor Federation and the 15 Democratic Party members on the city council have refused to allow the franchisement, the voting rights to these non-citizen residents. So this is our 4th demand. So we're asking for everybody that participates in the May Day coalition, or if you're doing your own separate May Day actions, to consider putting forward these demands along with any others that you have. We want voting rights. We want the chief to be removed from the police department. We want to remove Trump, and we want a united front against fascism. On the idea of the general strike, it's great to see the United Auto Workers International put forward 2028 general strike and call for alignment of contract expirations. But to be realistic, we may not make it until 2028, the direction that we're headed. So it's good to plan ahead, but we also have to be moving in the moment. We cannot just wait till our contract expires to be talking about having a fight with our direct employer. We need political strikes. The Gran Marcha in 2006 was not a contract fight against the employers. It was a political strike against a bill that was being proposed in Congress to make it a felony to not have documentation to be in the United States. That's why millions of people came out into the streets. That's the type of action we need to see, but the labor leadership is not going to lead political strikes in our communities unless we push them. In Minneapolis, the Minnesota Labor Federation endorsed what they called the general strike, but it was only after not just those 2 people were killed, but after 50 union members were put under ICE detention and deported. It came from the rank and file workers and the members of the union that demanded that their union leadership come out and support them in the streets, because they were going to go out into the streets anyway. The ILWU is not part of the AFL-CIO, but not just did they conduct a general strike, as was reported, as Mark mentioned, but when Oscar Grant was killed by the Oakland police on the train, they shut down the ports. And it was for a day, but that day mattered. In France and Italy and other countries, if the government says that they're going to increase the retirement age, make you work longer before you can collect your pension, they conduct one-day general strikes, and they have impact. It's not the maximum fight. It's not the absolute end of fighting to take over absolute control over everything. But as Sister Patricia said, it's part of exercising their muscle. It's a punch in the throat, and we're not even at that level. We need to be able to prepare for the maximum shutdown to win absolute power, not just to shut down, but to take over. But we need to be building that muscle. The one-day strike is something that we haven't seen in this country since decades and decades and decades ago on a mass level. On May 1st, please start spreading the word. This is March 1st. We have 60 days and 2 months. We need to be out in the streets. And it doesn't have to be the same march. We can march separately, but we must strike together.
Thank you all. All right, thank y'all so much. Thank you for your time on a Sunday. Take a burrito home. Take